how to achieve a transformation for life, and how to stop the yearly transformation. So in the online coaching world, we have a big problem, and it's pumping out 8 and 12-week transformations, because most of them that I see, if you were to look at that person in 6 months' time, you wouldn't even realize they've done a transformation. And it's not your fault if you've been there, because I've been there myself. For any of you who have watched my previous videos, you'll hear me talk about when I did my second bodybuilding show and I gained 12 kilos in 2 weeks. And that was not muscle, that was a lot of fat. And it's because how transformations have been set up. Everybody's wanting a quick and fast result, but that's not often the best thing for people. You imagine you've got 20, 30 years of bad habits under your belt, and you're expecting to undo that in 12 or 20 weeks like that. Yes, it can be done from a physical standpoint, but has it been done from a mental standpoint? And is it something that's going to be sustainable? Now, no one likes the stuff that I'm going to talk about today, because it's not shortcuts, it's not sexy, but it does work. And if you take the time to do this, that is how you will achieve a transformation for life. So let's first off start by defining what is the yearly transformation. The yearly transformation is made up of 2 stages. So the first one is crash dieting. So usually this will occur around summertime, so probably around 4 to 6 weeks out from a holiday, where you'll think to yourself, I'm not in shape, I've got a holiday coming up, so you'll slash calories, drop some fat really quick, get in all right shape for holiday, and you'll repeat this on a yearly basis. And your physique will never change, you'll just go through this cycle of losing the same 5 to 10 kilos every year just before your holiday, and then gaining it when you get back. Which takes us into the second part, and that is bulking. So I've kind of tried to move away from the word bulking, because what I tend to find is with people who do the yearly transformation, it's this cycle of crash dieting for before the holiday, and then when they get back from the holiday, they'll still probably carry on going to the gym, and then they'll kid themselves that they're bulking, whereas they're actually just eating everything in sight, and then they just end up gaining and losing the same 5 to 10 kilos of fat each year. The physique never changes, and they just repeat this yearly cycle, which I like to call the yearly transformation. So what is a transformation for life? A transformation for life is a physique that you're happy with and that you can maintain. It's about looking, feeling, and performing at your best. So how do we do that? Well, it's made up of 5 stages. You don't have to do all 5, and it's dependent upon where you're at in terms of your body fat percentage, but I'm going to run through these 5 stages now. And trust me, the information you're going to hear today is golden. If you can take away this and apply this, I guarantee you will achieve a transformation for life. It's not sexy, it's not fast, but it works. All right, let's start with a transformation for life, and let's start with the first part, and that's choosing a starting point. Where to start? Okay, this might seem obvious, some of this stuff I'm going to say, but I see so many people fall into the trap of trying to lose fat and build muscle at the same time. Now, yes, you can body recomposition, and in some cases, I would recommend doing it. But for most people, I would recommend choosing one or the other. So either deciding whether you want to lose weight or gain muscle. Because what most people do is they just spend years and years and years spinning their wheels, their physique not changing at all, and them just trying to lose weight and gain muscle at the same time. So what we need to do is decide which one is the most appropriate one for you. So if you are overweight, then you need to do a fat loss phase first. So if you are overweight, you need to do a fat loss phase first. If you are skinny fat, you need to do, in most cases, a fat loss phase first. And I'm going to explain why. If you are skinny fat, the likelihood is you are wanting to build muscle and lose fat, and you don't know where to start. For most people, I would say to start with losing weight first. And that's simply because we want to think about the step afterwards. The step after we've done a fat loss phase will be a muscle gaining phase. Now, we're going to come on to the fat loss and muscle gaining phases in a second, but when we do a muscle gaining phase, we want to allow as long a time period as we can in order for us to build muscle. But when we build muscle, we are going to be gaining weight in a 1-to-1 ratio, or pretty much a 1-to-1 ratio of muscle to fat if we're doing it naturally. If we're at a stage where we're skinny fat, and let's say we're already somewhere between 15 to 17% body fat, I would only recommend doing a gaining phase up until you get to around 20% body fat. That is probably the upper limit of where I'd say for most people to do it to. So if you're skinny fat and you start a gaining phase when you're at 15 to 17% body fat, you're not going to be doing a gaining phase for very long before you start having a diet. Whereas if we just dieted first, got to a lean enough point, then you would have a much longer period in order to do a gaining phase. And the other thing that I always like to say is for a lot of people who are going to be starting out on this kind of like transformation, transformation for life, is that you should hopefully be following a good training program. If you've not followed a periodized training program before with progressive overload, those first 6 months, you're going to get what we call newbie gains, where your gains in muscle and strength are just going to skyrocket. So for a lot of you who have not been training very well and you're kind of stuck in this skinny fat range, well, you're going to gain muscle anyway from your training because training is the main stimulus for building muscle. So why not let's get you lean enough as well to then do a muscle gaining phase. So I would always say if you are skinny fat, then you want to do a fat loss phase first. Okay, and then if you are obviously underweight, then you would start with a muscle gaining phase. And I also apologize, I know my handwriting is very scruffy, but this isn't a handwriting class, this is a body composition class. So let me just recap that, where to start. If you are overweight, you need to start with a fat loss phase. If you are skinny fat, you should probably start with a fat loss phase. If you are underweight, you should start with a muscle gaining phase. And if you're looking for some body fat percentages to be aiming for, if you're already somewhere between, let's say 10 to 13% body fat, then probably start with a muscle gaining phase. If you're somewhere between, let's say 14 to 17%, probably start with a fat loss phase. And then obviously if you're 20% above, then you should be starting with a fat loss phase first anyway. Okay, so hopefully that's cleared up where you should start. Now we're going to go through the 5 phases. Okay, so these 5 phases I'm going to go through. This isn't the order that you have to do them in, and it's not the order that you'll go through them within, but this is for the, let's say, average person. This is kind of the order I would recommend going through. And again, I'll apologize. I know my handwriting on the board isn't the neatest, so I'll call out what it is as I'm doing it as well. So we're going to start with the fat loss phase. So the duration of this. This is so dependent upon where you currently are now. But for most people, you would typically see this take from 12 weeks to 2 years. Yep, that's right. 12 weeks to 2 years. I told you this stuff is not sexy, but it's the truth. And the reason why I say for 2 years, if you are 30% plus body fat, which there's a lot of people who I've worked with who are that, it is going to take you a lot longer than 12 weeks and probably a year for some of you to get down to 15% body fat, because you're not going to lose weight every single week. There's going to be things come up as well, okay? We need to be periodizing your diet like you would do with your training as well when we are doing a fat loss phase. So it would be 12 weeks to 2 years, but that is not 12 weeks to 2 years of being in a calorie deficit. There will be periods of diet breaks spread in there as well from 1 to 2 weeks. So what is a diet break? A diet break would be a week off complete tracking, okay? Or 2 weeks off whenever you've got a holiday or social events on, or if you've been dieting for a period of time. Diet breaks are needed dependent upon where your body fat level is. And I'm not going to get into the intricacies too much of that. That'll be in another later video. But duration for most people is going to take from 12 weeks to 2 years with diet breaks of 1 to 2 weeks in between. Okay, the intensity of it. So I would say you want to be losing anywhere from 0.5 to 1.5% of body weight per week. Now, 1.5% is very high. For any of you that knows me or knows me watching this channel, I did an aggressive fat loss phase earlier this year where in 7 weeks I dropped like 7 kilos. It was about, I can't remember how much percent of body weight I was losing per week, but it was high. It was high. It was definitely up towards that 1%. Now, the reason why I say for your first fat loss phase, you can push the diet intensity a little bit harder is because you won't have already built a great deal amount of muscle mass for most people watching this. Like training and dieting is probably going to be new to yourself. So we can probably get a bit more aggressive with that fat loss phase to get the fat off quicker, so we're not dieting for such a long period of time. And because training is going to be new to you and it's going to be such a huge stimulus for you building muscle mass, while yes, there might be some muscle loss, I think for people who are very heavier or on a higher body fat percentage, it's much healthier and better that you get your body fat down quicker and potentially maybe lose a little bit of muscle. Obviously, if we're keeping protein high in your training, hopefully that won't happen, and because training is going to be a new stimulus to you. But I'd still rather get people down to a healthy body fat percentage as fast as possible. And that doesn't mean losing lots and lots of muscle mass, but there may be a little bit of muscle mass loss there. That's just my own personal belief on it. Now, what is the end goal? So we need to know the end goal of what we're actually working towards. And there's two end goals with a fat loss phase. And it just depends upon what your long-term goals is. So for most people, getting down to 10 to 12% body fat is going to be the best goal, or 15% body fat. And what's the difference between the two? So if you are going to do a gaining phase, or if you are going to do a maintenance phase. So let me just explain why. So if our end goal of doing the fat loss phase is a transformation for life, and we want to do a muscle gaining phase after the fat loss phase, then we want to get as lean as possible. Now, I don't recommend most people getting leaner than 10%. Once we start getting leaner than 10%, that's where we start to lose our libido. That's where our concentration levels really, really start to dip. There's a lot of things that, I mean, it's not a magic number, isn't 10%, but as soon as we start getting, sub 10%, life starts getting a bit less enjoyable, let's put it that way, okay? So 10 to 12% is a good starting point for most people to then do a muscle gaining phase and have a long period to do it. However, if you are 30% plus body fat, or if you are, a heavier weight already, you trying to get down to 10 to 12% body fat is going to take a long time. And it's not always necessary, I don't think. For some people, being absolutely shredded isn't the end goal. It's just to get body fat down to a good level, find somewhere they can maintain, and that's why I recommend 15, maybe up to 18% body fat is a good place for most people to sit, and then from doing a maintenance phase, you can then go into something called maintenance without tracking, which is the end goal of which what we're going to come into in a second. So let me recap the fat loss phase. So our end goal is, if you are going to do a muscle gaining phase afterwards, to get to 10 to 12% body fat. If you want to just do a fat loss phase to get your weight down and have something to maintain, then the goal would be to get to about 15% and learn how to maintain that result. Duration, it could take anywhere from 12 weeks up to 2 years, if not longer for some people, depending upon how heavy you are and how much body fat you have to lose. That is the reality of it. Diet intensity, I would recommend losing anywhere from 0.5 up to, in some cases at the start, 1.5% of body weight per week. And that is in the heavier individuals. For most people, I think for your first fat loss phase, sitting somewhere between 0.5 to 1% of body weight loss per week is a good place to be. Okay, once we've completed the fat loss phase, it's time for the gaining phase. So with the muscle gaining phase, or technically a bulk, I suppose, the idea is with a gaining phase, we want to gain the most amount of muscle with the least amount of body fat, which means we need to do it at a slow rate, which is appropriate to your training age. And this is where I see so many people go wrong. They will dirty bulk and just eat whatever's in sight. And because of that, they just end up gaining a load of fat. They might gain a little bit of muscle. Then when it comes time to lose that weight again, they end up just losing and gaining the same 5 to 10 kilos forever, which is why you should do a gaining phase very, very slowly based on your training age. So duration, if you do it properly, you'll be doing it at least 6 months. I am currently 4 months into my gaining phase, and I've gained around 4.2 kilos, I believe it is. Okay, so I'm going at about 1 kilo a month. Now my training age I've set as intermediate. Most people who come to work with me think they're at an advanced training age, and they're not. They're at a beginner training age. So be realistic with yourself. When you say that you followed a periodized progressive overload training program, be honest with yourself, okay? What a lot of people think a good training program is just a load of their favorite exercises that are put in and it says 3x10. And that's not trying to be harsh or trying to be unfair. That's just from the experience of what I've seen and what I've done in the past also as well. Okay, so monthly weight gain. So it's now, I do set a weekly weight gain target as well, but it is more the monthly weight gain target that we are focused on. So we're looking from anywhere from 0.5 to 1.5% of body weight on a monthly basis. And that's going to be whether you're a beginner, intermediate or advanced training age. Obviously, the further advanced we are, the slower the rate of weight gain is going to be, because it becomes more difficult for us to build muscle as we get closer towards our genetic potential. And yes, it's still debated whether there is a ceiling or not. But for most people watching this, you're not going to be anywhere near your ceiling. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. Now, the end goal, that is going to scare a lot of people when they see 20% body fat. But if you do a gaining phase correctly, that is the upper limit of where you want to go to. We don't want to start going above 20% body fat, because for health and physique reasons, like physique reasons, obviously the heavier we get, the more body fat we've got to lose. But then also once we start getting above 20% body fat, we don't want to start running into health outcomes as well that are associated with having a higher body fat percentage. So let me just recap these. We've got the fat loss phase first, and then we've got the gaining phase. And again, this is why I say for people, if you are in that skinny fat range, I would start with a fat loss phase. You give yourself a long period of time to do a gaining phase. I currently am 4 months in. I think I'm going to be doing a gaining phase for almost about a year, to be honest with you, at this rate. So this takes us on to number 3, which is the transformation phase. So I'm going to quickly apologize. I've just looked through the camera and I can see how bad my handwriting is. As I said, it's not handwriting class, but I appreciate some of the stuff might be a bit hard on there to read. If there is anything or any information you do want to know on here, please feel free to shoot me a DM on Instagram or simply comment below and I'll help you out with it. Okay, transformation phase. So this is the same as a weight loss phase or a fat loss phase. However, there is a bit of a difference, and let me explain why. So with the transformation phase, so we've done the fat loss phase, we've done the gaining phase, we're up at 20% body fat. Duration, this is going to be specific to you. Now, I would say for most people that we want to be going at about 0.5% of body weight per week now on this fat loss phase or transformation phase. And the reason why I don't think we should go as aggressive up to 1.5% is because you've just spent 6+ months doing a gaining phase where we've been working really hard on building muscle mass. Now, when we go into a calorie deficit, there is often cases where we will see some muscle loss. So for me, I would rather keep my calories higher, lose body weight at a slower rate, and try and retain the muscle mass I've worked so hard to build, rather than go into an aggressive fat loss phase and potentially risk losing some of that muscle mass. So there definitely is, and I've used them and I think they're a great tool, there is definitely times for aggressive fat loss phases when in very short periods, and if you've never done dieting or training before, or if it's going to be, as I mentioned, in a short phase. But if I've just spent 6+ months working really hard to build as much muscle as I want to try and retain that as best as possible, which is why I would say 0.5, maybe up to 0.75% of body weight on a weekly basis you want to be looking to lose. End goal, reveal the muscle that you've built in this phase here. So we've got the fat loss phase, we've got the gaining phase, we've got the transformation phase, and it's time for the maintenance phase. So the maintenance phases, these should last anywhere from around 2 to 4 weeks. Now, the goal of the maintenance phase is just to maintain your weight. These act as a bit of a transition from fat loss phase to gaining phase to transformation phase, or whatever order you're doing it in. So when you're going between phases, you should always spend at least 2 weeks in what we call the maintenance phase. You may also as well, once you've done the transformation phase, be very happy with the result you've got. So you might want to learn how to maintain that result, and that's when we move into the maintenance phase before we move into the next one. Now, what you will typically see in a maintenance phase is a 1 to 3 kilo gain in weight. Now, don't worry, this is not body fat. This is a combination of water and glycogen, because you've been dieting, you've been in a calorie deficit, obviously carbohydrates have been reduced. Therefore, when we bring calories back in, we typically tend to see this gain in weight, and it's from glycogen and water, so it's nothing to worry about. I'm going to add a little bit more onto the maintenance phase as well now. I've just remembered this, and there is another phase that you can do, which is maximum maintenance. So what's maximum maintenance? Maximum maintenance is basically finding the maximum amount of calories you can eat while in your maintenance phase. So what you would do is, if you did want to maintain this result for a while longer, now it would be a case of trying to find the maximum amount of calories you can eat while maintaining your weight. So it'd be a case of adding, let's say, maybe 10 grams of carbs, a couple of grams of fats. It might be adding 100 calories on a weekly basis, 150 calories if we gain a little bit weight, pause. But that is what the maximum maintenance phase would be. And then we've got the final phase, maintenance without tracking. So duration of this, ongoing. End goal is this, okay? If you want a transformation for life, so a transformation for life for me would be when you look, feel, and perform at your best. For most people, in terms of a body fat percentage, that's probably going to be somewhere from 12 to 15%, and maintaining this all year round without tracking their nutrition intake. So for me, a transformation for life is somebody that can look, feel, and perform at their best, sit usually somewhere probably around 12 to 15% body fat, and maintain their weight without tracking their nutrition intake. Because the whole purpose, remember, of you tracking your nutrition intake is so that you never have to do it again. And there's certain habits within the maintenance without tracking, so learning to take your weekly average weight and tracking that on a weekly basis, making sure you're hitting your weekly average step count, making sure you're getting your weekly gym sessions in, if you're doing any cardiovascular based work as well. There's certain dietary things you want to be doing as well, making sure you're eating a high protein diet, drinking lots of water, getting lots of fruit and veggies in your diet, and so on and so on. Again, I'll maybe make another video at a separate time on maintenance without tracking. I'll make a video on each of these and go into these in more detail, but this is how you would achieve a transformation for life. So let me just recap the whole thing. So we need to decide on a starting point. If you are overweight, you need to do a fat loss phase. If you are skinny fat, in most cases, you need to do a fat loss phase. If you are underweight, you need to start of a gaining phase. If you start of a fat loss phase, the duration is somewhere from 12 weeks to 2 years. Diet breaks will be spread out intermittently from anywhere from 1 to 2 weeks, depending upon your body fat levels and how long you've been dieting for. Diet intensity, you want to be losing anywhere from 0.5 to 1.5% of body weight on a weekly basis. End goal, if you are wanting to do a muscle gaining phase, you would want to get somewhere between 10 to 12% body fat, so you can give yourself a long period of time to do a gaining phase. If you are just looking to maintain your result, you would want to get to somewhere around 15% body fat. Once you've done this, so you're either going to move into the maintenance phase, which we spoke about, and then you'd move into maintenance without tracking, or you'd go from fat loss phase into the gaining phase. The gaining phase, duration at least 6 months long. Monthly weight gain, 0.5 to 1.5% of body weight based on your training age. End goal, 20% body fat. Once you get to 20% body fat, that's where we want to move into the transformation phase. The transformation phase is just a fat loss phase, but I prefer to diet at a lower intensity, so losing somewhere around 0.5% of body weight per week. The end goal of this would be to reveal the muscle you've built in the gaining phase, so getting back down to a similar body fat percentage, and then hopefully you can see that you've gained X amount of kilos in muscle. Once we've done the transformation phase, you could then, if you wanted to, go back into another gaining phase, and you could keep going between these two. Or once we've done the transformation phase, we can move into the maintenance phase, somewhere between 2 to 4 weeks, learning how to maintain this result. And then once we've done that, we can move into the maintenance without tracking, which should take around 30 days, but should be something that's ongoing forever. Hopefully that's answered how to achieve a transformation for life. For most people, to complete this process, it would take around 2 years. But again, it's all dependent upon what body fat level percentage you are starting at, and obviously your adherence to the diet. If you've got any questions on this, or if this is something that you've seen and you're like, wow, that's what I need to go through, this is what I coach my clients through. I call it your journey, and it's about assessing where you're currently at, going through the different fat loss and muscle gaining phases, transformation phases, maintenance without tracking. And again, it's all specifically set up for you. So any questions on this, or if you are interested in doing what I like to call your journey, then please either send me an email, send me a message on Instagram, put your details in the comments below, and I'll be in touch.